Thank you, Daniela, and welcome everyone to the October webinar, where I'll be talking about some great help tools and resources that will help immensely in your FME journey, especially being at the beginning. My name's Michael. I've been with One Spatial since 2020 and started using FME not long after in a lot of different sort of sales office operations. But throughout, I've sort of transitioned more into technical, picking up both the business and certified professional, and been in the spatial industry pretty much since I've started at One Spatial. Quickly covering the agenda, I'll start by just very quickly recapping what the FME Accelerator was, but the bulk of the webinar will be in the FME help tools that are provided, and then also SAFE's provided resources that are online and accessible to everyone, but then also the training that One Spatial provides too. And I'll wrap it up with a bit of a summary and some more anecdotal user tips for people just starting out with FME. So I'll start off on quickly recapping on what the FME Accelerator was. It's essentially a quick crash course into FME form and FME flow. We ran this last month as an avenue for people to get their hands on FME and have a bit of a play around with how FME form and flow works. They were provided both on a platform that you just log into, so there was no requirement for people to have the data and the software ready. So it was quite low risk and low preparation to get your hands on FME if those sort of things have been a bit of a barrier. So it's great for that. And there was just an environment to go through the interfaces at your own pace. And there was a handful of exercises and some introductory slides that we went through just to give an idea of how FME integrates and processes data and what the capabilities are. So assuming that you've seen it and you're on the accelerator course or you had your hands on FME, you might be able to start seeing some potential with integrating a certain system that you have at work, or there's a particular format that you've been trying to get data out of that you didn't really know how to before, and FME might be a good avenue for that. You might have a particular file transfer that you have to do every month or on some sort of schedule that you might now see some benefit automating, or maybe a trigger. Or you might just be someone that says, oh, well, if I've ever had to do these type of things, I have to use Python because that's a free resource available that I can use. But it's a bit of obviously a bit of a learning curve trying to get a lot of those things done. If you don't have those things, then, I mean, this is kind of like everything, I guess, but the journey can finish there because you just don't really see much of a use, or you just might be I mean, with FME, you can kind of use it for everything really, but you might be at that particular time or the particular role you have and the tools you have available that there's just not much use in it. But usually what can happen is either you just time poor with the task you have at work, which then sort of reverts people to being a bit set in their ways of using the skills and software that they already have. But then a lot of it as well can be just the daunting blank canvas nature of FME. Sometimes it actually can require a bit of creativity or a bit of a push to get going. But, you know, when in the FME Accelerator that we just did, a lot of the points are made here like this of all data, any AI, you know, essentially this is great because it opens up possibilities, but it also doesn't give a starting point at all. And can be quite daunting and yeah, not very directional or guidance into where you can start with FME. So where to start, which is really what we're trying to answer mostly with this whole webinar. I would really suggest the best place to start and what's going to probably get you on your way easiest is by leveraging something at work. You know, a project's a pretty good one because if you're leveraging something for work and it has to be done, then it creates a necessity to work through all those little teething and troubleshooting problems you're going to have, not just with FME, but any software that you use. And if you're really lucky, you might get a lot of that learning time or sandbox sort of play around with FME to be on the clock, because with FME there is numerous ways you can do one thing. So playing around and seeing which, or there's multiple transformers to do one thing. So playing around and seeing which one works best can sometimes be a bit trial and error. Um, so having that time accounted for can be a really big difference maker. If you don't have that or a particular project, another way to do something at work is just replacing a current process. So, having spreadsheets or monthly reports or just really simple file transfers or a lot of those basic things that happens in a lot of organizations, I reckon would be able to be replaced with FME. It's somewhere small and it might not be business critical, but it's really good just to have something to get you going and give you some direction to in terms of what writers and transformers to use. And a lot of projects we see are moving Python scripts over into FME. So if that's sort of something you've already started leveraging before knowing about FME, it might be good to go back to some of those basic Python scripts and see if you can recreate them in FME. So just a sort of final summary point that ties these two together. That daunting blank canvas feeling that can sometimes deter people gets neutralized a little bit if you have these type of purposes to pick up FME. So if you don't have the luxury of being able to weave picking up FME during work hours, it just, I guess, like anything, if it's a skill you're having for career as opposed to a hobby, if you can't really carve time out for it during the day, it can be just a big drop off point for users, which is completely understandable. I guess if you're just really trying to give a suggestion, maybe you have some personal projects that you can look at that you could use FME for. This is really bizarre to sort of admit, but I actually used FME to create an NBA fantasy draft board using NBA stats. So that actually kicked me off my FME journey, which is super weird and not spatial at all. But I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that second point can actually work. Um, some paths that can give you guidance or some sort of launching pad to start creating things can be the FME, well, definitely are the FME Academy and also the tutorials that they provide there. And also, the other alternative is having something a bit more accountable and on the clock and tangible is, of course, paid FME training that you can do um, from an expert. Some other things that are there for you as well that I think are quite new and have created an environment where it's actually a lot easier nowadays to get going with FME that I'm going to run through later in the webinar as well. Self-generating workspaces, that's sort of just a nice feature, but is very basic, but embedded AI assist is definitely a great feature to have, and I'll go through it. But then example workspaces as well. I'll go through that in more detail. And just sort of showing you how accessible these features are. This is actually the help bar that you get from the interface. And if you just click on help, all those suggestions that I've just put there are available straight from the FME form interface. So self-generating workspaces, I won't spend a whole heap of time on this because it's not an awfully intuitive feature. It just creates a simple file conversion of reader to writer, and then we'll create some automated bookmarks around that. And it does look quite neat and tidy. You find it in the build toolbar, so it's very accessible, and more or less just wanted to bring it up because your eyes kind of light up when you see something like that. But it just sort of gives you this. It's not awfully intuitive. It's more or less just pulling in the reader and writer parameters you just pulled out, and there's no transformers. So don't get too hyped to think that that's going to use AI to intuitively build you some magic workspace, unfortunately. Example workspaces, I highly recommend everyone at the start of the FME journey to go check these out. It's good for not only a lot of common FME processes that a lot of us would be doing, it has correct processes. And I mean that in terms of documentation, organization, and instructions on how to use the workspaces. So you can't really go wrong if that's going to how you're going to build your FME habits, I'd say. It's a gallery style tool that has about 200 workspaces. Most of them are from other users, sorry, and other people in the community, but there are a handful as well that are verified from SAFE and are published from them too. So I'll show you in a second, but when you go to them, it details the functionality and each transformer used really well and very easily understood. And this is an example of what it looks like. So you can just go to that toolbar with help that I mentioned before and go to the examples gallery. And this is what it will bring up. So this is just a featured example. You can see you've got the verified in community there as well. But this one's it's basically just the first one I went to really. And it's got a really good description of what it does and the key transformers and even got references for its data. And this is an example of one of those example workspaces from the gallery. However, I've just chosen CAD to GIS. I feel like that might be a little bit more applicable to FME users, but you can just see here that everything's organized well. There's no lines that are crisscrossing each other. Things are bookmarked, things are annotated. You know exactly what's going on here. And what I also like to note as well is they've even included annotations on the workspace itself that tell you and where the data is and give you instructions on how to run it. Now I'll show you the embedded AI assist through a worked example because we know how ChatGPT works in OpenAI as it's just a widget installed into the workspace. You can access it up through the toolbar there, and when you do use it, it will bring up just the chat box for you to ask away. But the real advantage of this is that it taps into your workflow, and the language model is only trained for official safe resources. So there's trust in the response, and also provides the suggested transformers and related tutorials that go with your query as well. So this is a workspace that I made that aims to try and convert asset symbology designed in CAD for facility data into SVG and try and retain those features that should be point data and retain the designs as symbols. So to do that, we need to convert these to SVG files, which is the graphic format and a XML structure that is read by both QGIS and Esri for custom symbology. So unfortunately, with FME, the SVG writer that it has, it stamps some formatting attributes in a schema that, at least to my knowledge and level of involvement, can't really be removed or changed. And it causes issues for it to be reading in GIS software. But I figured I'd use AI to try and fix the structure so that it will work in those GIS softwares. But with all the AI connectors, I wanted to find out essentially what's going to be the best fitting for this so I don't have to spend as much time on potential reiterations. And then asking AI, which was in that screenshot before, it says the OpenAI connector is going to be your best bet. So I brought it in and then built this workspace to then carry it out. So what I've got here is I've got the reader that's brought it in, and using an existing SVG file from the QGS installation files, I actually read that in and then merged the two together to essentially use them dynamically in the OpenAI prompt to fix the incorrect FME file that it's printed. So that's where it sits in there, and then that's where the model's trained and the prompts developed. And then, pretty much gets it all going, and then just trim off the right attributes that I need, and then write it out into a text file that you can then just later go in and change it to an SVG so you don't get the same formatting issues. And this is the design that came in through the CAD that's representative of a valve in point data. And then this is it coming through in QGIS once you connect to the right folder. And then, you can also see two others in the SVG images, or one other, sorry, that works. It's quite repeatable and it's worked really well for the suite of symbols. So now I'll take you through some more of the learning resources that are provided from SAFE. So those SAFE provided resources, I'll go through them now and then elaborate on them in order. So there's the FME Academy, which is an online learning platform, and it just gives you some guided courses that can be quite broad, certifications as well, and some training paths, and can guide you based on a few things to help you learn FME essentially, but more pertained to how you're going to be using it and where you're at. Then there's the FME Support Center. So this is a bit more guided and a bit more specific than the FME Academy, as it provides tutorials. They call them articles, but don't get tripped up. That are a bit more specific on certain processes and certain features, and then also has documentation, troubleshooting, guides, things like that that will help you if you ever get stuck. And then there's also the FME community, which also is a great place to go to if you get stuck, because it's a forum where people post their insights, ask questions, post their issues, and everyone sort of collaborates on helping each other out and yeah, enriching essentially FME and how it can adapt to the ever-changing landscapes of data and new data formats. So I'll first go through FME Academy. It's the most broad of the resources for learning. It provides an awesome spot to find learning resources that SAFE provides. So you can see a few of them there, but there's short introductory courses, webinars that are coming up from SAFE, and just learning paths to upskill and become more advanced with FME. The content in Get Started is ideally probably the best place to start, which makes a whole lot of sense. And you'll actually find some follow-ons from the FME Accelerator course that are quite similar, but more user inputted, as opposed to running a pre-configured workspace to understand, how FME works. And yeah, that's where that is. And I'll just go through now a bit more about the learning paths. They do a good job, SAFE, at taking out the decision of what learning paths you should be doing based on how you're using FME. So they've got this here, which, do you want to get guided on what path you should go by experience, by skill, what role you are at work? They do a really good job of taking that sort of out of the equation of having to worry about whether you're at the right place. So if we select by experience, this is some of the options that they provide for you if you want to choose by experience. And then, we're probably going to be choosing level up. We're probably maybe a little bit past get started if we've done the accelerator course. So if we choose level up, these are the paths it will suggest for you to go to. So you can see there's just some basic stuff about form and some pretty basic stuff about deploying some things to FME Flow, which we did touch on in the accelerator course. So yeah, that's just, sort of using the tools that they provide, pretty easily landed at where I need to be to upskill with FME. Now moving on to the support center. The FME Support Center is your go-to place for learning how to use FME, especially when you're just starting out, because it offers tutorials, documentation, and troubleshooting guides to help you understand and solve some pretty common issues that are out there, but also some pretty niche ones as well. While it doesn't have its own forums, it connects you directly to the FME community forums as well, where you can go and ask questions and get peer support, which I'll show you in a little bit later. I'll show you now some more of the tutorial side, as this is probably the best feature about the support center is doing the tutorials. And yeah, it's no better time to use it really when you're a beginner, but just sits here in data types and solutions. And so this is the page that you land on. And as you can see, I've put some boxes around key things. On the left, there's the range of topics provided that you can do your tutorials on. So there's quite a few. And then obviously under those subbing headings, you've got even more options there. And then I've just picked on CAD and BIM. And if I go into CAD and BIM, it will then take you to a page where it offers all the tutorials that are related to CAD and BIM. So looking at all those, one of the ones I looked there and just thought would probably be quite applicable if you were to this page, which is converting parcel lines and text from a CAD format into a geodatabase. So if I click on that, I get taken to here, and there's a step-by-step instruction guide on how to do the tutorial, and it's also broken up into parts, which makes you navigate the tutorial a lot easier. and it'll give you the key information like which version to use and provide all the data for you to download. So everything's there for you to be resourceful and get going. And the specific nature of these tutorials is also really good for when new features comes out. So when data virtualization about a month ago or two, or a bit longer, way longer to be honest, came out, I just did it a month or two, which is the tutorial on data virtualization to pick that up. And yeah, there's all sort of the resources and the way explained is quite easy to understand. And yeah, really good resource to have to learn new features. Now moving on to the FME community. It's an online space where users connect and learn and post their issues and ideas about FME. In the context of a beginner, it's really helpful because you can ask around questions in the forum, post your workspaces, post questions, and you will get answers back from very experienced users and sometimes the staff from STAFE themselves. The forums are organized by topics and it makes it really easy to find the discussions relevant to your data challenges or what you're looking for. For me personally, searching my FME issues in these forums have been really helpful, and I don't really think I've ever had an article that hasn't been responded to. So that gives you good peace of mind that you can actually, if you're a bit stuck at work or people don't know the issue, the idea, or the solution, you're probably going to find it in the forums. But the ideas part here is good. I guess maybe if you're a beginner and you're really starting to pick it up, or you're quite you've just struck gold and you think something really needs to that it should be suggested, there you go. But yeah, it's I guess a good avenue as well for people that get quite developed with FME or that style of thing, that they can actually start submitting their ideas. And if you do get upvotes and you do get feedback, it is actually something safe to take notice of, and they do actually make updates based around those. So it's not just them pretending that they care. For a long story short, I've physically seen it. So yeah, definitely a good thing to keep a hold of if you do like to share your ideas about how things can improve. I'll show you now an example of how the participation works in the FME community that you'll most likely see the majority of in the articles. So this is an example of a post that a person's made where they're having an issue about a bounding box that they're trying to filter via intersection, and you've got someone that's trying to reply and help them out. And you can see that there's some upvotes, there's some thumbs up and things like that that have filtered the best answers to the top. So it makes it quite easy to see that. And then, but also if this article isn't quite you're looking for, you've got some related topics on the right as well that might actually direct you to a better article. But there's profile features that are displayed for users. So you can see that there's rankings for contributors. And then there's also some badges there that get displayed and show you how many badges that you've earned. And it's a reflection of how involved you are because you earn those badges and points and things like that from a wide range of activities. It's pretty obvious. So like from completing tutorials, doing the learning paths, attending webinars, and a big one's contributing to forums and getting, a lot of upvotes on your good answers and things like that. And then FME actually created a recognition system through a global leaderboard. And this allows other users, it's essentially just a bit of bragging rights, right? But it sort of encourages some people to keep contributing or just create, bite on that sort of human competitive nature, which I think is awesome. And yeah, so you can see who the most knowledgeable are, and it gives a bit of clout to people's answer when they actually are trying to answer the right thing. And we actually have at number 12 in the world, none other than our own James Botterill, based over in WA. Yeah, that works for us as a consultant for One Spatial. So he's got over 52 badges and is a high forum contributor, which actually makes him an FME influencer, as you can see at the top. But I wouldn't expect him to see him taking videos of himself on a tripod in the middle of a busy walkway doing a bounding box interpretive dance anytime soon. Now I'll move on to One Spatial provided learning, which is a paid resource, and they're essentially a contrast to what Safe provide, because what Safe provide are obviously free and all self-service, but sometimes for particular people or just how it works out, that the increased flexibility and sort of self-serving nature can be great, and how specified it is for tutorials can be perfect for what that is. But if you're looking to get a general scope of learning basics or learning functions as a whole, having that sort of self-service nature can create procrastination of just knowing you can go to it at any time, and just, might not create a much urgency or kickstart to get you going with FME. So doing something like the FME Form Beginner course can be a really good option. It's a 2-day course delivered by an actual certified FME trainer. So you've got a bit of peace of mind that yourself or the people you're sending there are going to be learning good habits. It's quite relatively small classes, so it does create quite a good one-on-one support system, and then the fact that it's half the times for exercises really means that you've got a lot of time to have a go at it, and also just chat to the trainer and answer questions and make sure you've really got a grip of it. And it's run pretty often, so it's something that you're not really going to have to wait too long to get access to. That's another form, I guess, you could do is custom training, which is just more or less of like, if you have a lot of people that you're sending from your company and that might take up most of a small class anyway, why not just have everyone go there and you can cater the material to your company needs, which is something we offer. So that can be a really good option. And sort of the benefits of doing something like this is just a little bit peace of mind, and more or less having time allocated for people to focus and learn FME, and you don't have to worry about getting pulled away or getting distracted when you just need some time with FME just to figure it out and get those practices down. So it's great for that, and sort of eliminates that procrastination and time poor aspect of it. And it also creates a bit of tangible sort of accreditation that you can sort of leverage for people in their careers, really, and something you can put on LinkedIn. But also create a bit of accountability if you're a manager saying, this is training that's done, it's been provided. This is something now that we should be able to leverage effectively in our operations. But the main point I want to drive, that the reason why we mention all the free resources so much is that because they complement each other, they don't really replace each other. The FME training we provide is really great for the points that I've just sort of went through, but then using a self-service resources or a place to post your questions or quickly, get some advice or do a tutorial for a particular thing you need is really good for the academy and the resources that FME provide. And finally, I wrap this up with a typical journey of what an FME user can go through regardless of industry. So you can start with transforming some manipulating easy common formats, kind of what I was alluding to at the start of like a simple sort of project you've got on at work. But common ones I see is you get a trial, and then you might try and turn an Excel table into a PDF report, which is actually really tricky when you go to find out. But putting like a GDB into a geo package, or making something 2D, 3D is, some pretty good places to start and pretty common, and then might get the resources or do something to investment to do some beginner training. And then the wheels start turning, and you start sort of creating a few more workspaces, and you start maybe optimizing the ones that you were making in the point above, so that CSV file that you're turning into something else is now a database connection, optimizing it that way. But then as you sort of share it with your colleagues or maybe the community, you'll sort of, at least maybe this is the experience I went through, but they're saying, these are workspaces that you can optimize a whole lot better, and that sort of shapes a lot more of your learning from that point of perspective. But then when you do those, you can start getting a bit more of a nuance of how FME processes data, and how you can optimize things better. And you might start moving on to the training, to intermediate training, and start looking at FME flow. And as you start using FME for a lot of things, I should say for processes outside your line of work or for other people, you start sort of doing user parameters and automating things and creating web apps for people and really start diving into a lot of the juicy stuff with FME. And you might start doing some advanced training and flow training as well. And this, it sort of takes off from here a little bit, particularly if you've got a lot of use cases you can use FME for. And you start getting into doing custom transformers and group processing with loops and trigger automations, and essentially become someone that just says, "Oh yeah, FME can do that," because there are a lot of people out there that are like that and become FME evangelists and get themselves right up on the leaderboard. So yeah, it's yeah, something you could really take as well throughout your career and utilize at a lot of different organizations as well. So it's very handy to a tool to master. And I'll leave it there because I'm conscious we're running a little over time. So thank you all for coming along. Hopefully, this is giving you a bit of a launching pad to go into your FME journey and utilize some of those resources that can help you get off the ground. I'll go back to Daniela now and we can answer any of the questions that have come in.